Claudia. I'm a self-proclaimed bookworm. My boyfriend, not so much. So I started summarizing entire books for him. Dramatic plot twists, romantic betrayals, magical quests, all of it. Basically, he gets the story without reading a single page. And now I'm doing the same for you. Welcome to The Whole Story, the channel where I read the book and then tell you the whole story, literally. Fantasy, romance, literary fiction. If it has yearning, magic, or emotional damage, I've got you covered. I'll tell you the whole story in 30 minutes or less, spoilers included. Yes, I will tell you who dies, who cries, and who should have just gone to therapy. So, if you like books, but you don't have the time to read all of them, or you just want to know what happens without the emotional labor, hit subscribe and let's write some endings together. Yeah, because life's too short to read 700 pages of slow burn, unless you're into it. I kinda am. So we are going to talk about Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. So this is a book that takes place in about the 1800s in England. It is fiction, considered a classic as well. And we are going to follow Phileas Fogg in his journeys. So what you have to understand is Phileas Fogg is a very structured man. He is precise. He is the opposite of emotional and chaotic. You know, he has his routine. He does every day the same thing, and he likes his life being planned by the minute. So this guy, he's a bit wealthy. He has some money. We don't really know why. I mean, he doesn't work, but he has money. And the book starts with him hiring a new butler because his previous butler he was like a minute late. So that was a big thing. So he decided to fire that guy, and then he decides to hire a new guy who is called Jean Passepartout. And it's a French man who used to have a crazy life. You know, he was in a traveling circus, he was a singer, he was a horse rider, he did the trapeze, the tightrope, everything. So he has decided he wants to have a calm life now. He's ready to settle down and just chill. And he meets Phileas Fogg and he's like, amazing, this is the guy. I'm gonna have a nice life. There's gonna be no surprises. This is where I belong. So we start with the story, and Phileas Fogg, every day he goes to a gentleman's club and he has a few friends there. So one day he goes and they're talking about something that was in the news. That is the Bank of England has just been robbed. And it's very interesting because the robber was a gentleman. It was not, you know, a guy that looks crazy and went in with guns and everything. It was a gentleman that went in, took the money and left. And this guy took £55,000, which is a lot of money. And they're all talking about it and about how this guy, if he's smart, he's just gonna get on a boat or on a train and leave, right? And the world used to be so big that it took you 3 months to go around the whole globe, but now it's so small, so he could go anywhere at any point. And Phileas Fogg says, well, no, actually you can go around the world in 80 days. And they're like, no, you can't. He's like, yeah, because of this train and that steamer and whatever, it takes 80 days. And the guy's like, yes, but you're not considering other things that could happen and obstacles. He's like, yes, I am. I could go around the world in 80 days. And they're like, sure. Do you want to do it? I bet you can't. He's like, okay, I'm going to do it. So Phileas Fogg decides to take this bet, not because he wants to travel and see the world and because he's excited about everything that he can do. It's about honor, and it's about proving the point that if you plan everything to the minute, you can do anything that you want, including going around the world in 80 days. So they bet. He says, if I'm not back 21st of December at 8:45 p.m., I give you £20,000. This is him against 4 guys. And then after some talk, they say like, okay, if you make it back, we're each going to give you, I think it's like £4,000 or something like that. They shake on it. It's a gentleman's word. And off he goes. He goes home. He goes to Passepartout, who just got hired that day. And is super happy with the steady life. And he says, pack our bags. We are going around the world. Passepartout doesn't believe him, obviously. He's like, okay, weird, but sure. He packs everything. And in the rush, he even forgets to turn off the gas lamp in his bedroom, it matters. So they get on the train and they go to Calais, and then they go to Suez. So that's the first part of their trip, right? So in parallel, people start hearing about the bet and hearing about what Phileas Fogg is going to attempt to do, and everyone gets super involved in this. It shows up in the newspapers, it becomes a new stock share, and everyone starts betting alongside these gentlemen. right? He's friends, and then it's the whole thing like, do you believe he can do it? Do you believe he can't? Etc. And at the same time, the police is starting to look for the robbers. So they have actually sent a lot of detectives around the world, primarily to the British territories, to try and catch this guy because they think he's going to try to run away and escape. And this is when we're introduced to Detective Fix, a policeman that has heard the story and has heard the whole gamble and bet of Phileas Fogg, and he put two and two together, and he realized that Phileas Fogg is the robber. He is the gentleman who went in, robbed all that money, and then decided to travel the world in 80 days. What a coincidence that this happens the day after the bank was stolen, and all this money that he's betting matches a bit the money that was stolen. So Detective Fix is waiting for them in Suez, and he becomes really convinced that this is the guy. So he decides to follow them because he wants to arrest them, but he doesn't have a warrant yet, and he has to wait a few days. So he doesn't want to lose sight of his target, so he gets in the next ship with them. They go all the way to Bombay next in India. And this is a funny part, you know, like everywhere they go, something happens. And in Bombay, Passepartout is walking around. He's supposed to buy clothes and shoes and things for them to travel because they left in such a hurry. And then he's looking at all the culture and everything, and he enters a temple, a very beautiful temple, but he doesn't know that Christians are not allowed in the temple and you can't go in with your shoes on. So they find him, they see him, and they chase after him, and he barely gets out with his life, and he loses his shoes. It's a whole thing. And he's always getting into problems. He makes it, and they continue. He tells the story to Phileas Fogg, and Phileas Fogg is like very like, okay, sure, just be careful next time. One important thing is everywhere they go, Phileas Fogg does not care. Like, he doesn't walk around, he doesn't try to understand the culture, do some touristing things. It's mostly Passepartout that tries to visit things, and he's always the one getting in trouble. So the next stop is they are in a train. The whole time that they're in a train, we're talking about hours, and Phileas Fogg is just playing whist, a card game. He meets Sir Francis, they're playing whist, they're playing cards, and they're just waiting for the next stop. Phileas Fogg does not care about where they go. He doesn't look outside the window. He couldn't be bothered. It's about making the trip in the allotted time. When they get to Colby, even though they said in the newspaper that the train was finished, it actually isn't. And everybody knows this except them. So there's a portion of the track that is not finished. So they have to get out in Colby and then walk to Allahabad, which is the next part where the track actually starts. And there's no transportation. All the cars, donkeys, everything has been taken. So Phileas Fogg decides to get an elephant. And this is the famous cover and the part that most people hear about. So he buys an elephant. He hires a guy to ride the elephant with them. And he takes Passepartout and Sir Francis, who also needs to get there. So they go. In the way, they pass by a cité, which is a religious procession, and they find a princess, Mrs. Ouda, who is going to be a voluntary sacrifice. And at this point, the rules were her husband died. Her husband, who is a Raja or a prince, he died. And in their culture, the princess, his wife, also has to die. Because if she doesn't, she'll be destituted, they'll shave her hair, they won't give her food, she'll be like completely like screwed up. So it's a voluntary sacrifice because the alternative is not very good. So she's drugged, they're carrying her around, and she's gonna be burned alive tomorrow. And Phileas Fogg, even though he's like on the clock, he's like, no, we're not gonna do this, we're gentlemen, this is British territories, this is horrible things that shouldn't be happening, we're gonna save this woman. So they spend the night, they try to dig a hole through the wall, they fail, they can't do it, and then Passepartout has the great idea of pretending to be the dead husband, so it's a whole distraction thing. In the morning, they're trying to burn them alive, and Passepartout just wakes up, carries the woman out, and everyone's like, oh my god, the husband is alive. No, it was just him pretending, and the body is clearly still there. So in this whole thing, they actually managed to take Mrs. Ouda out, and they save her, and she's very thankful and everything. And She's a very beautiful woman, of course. She's Parsi, so but she was educated in an English school, so she's very polite, well-educated, everything. And they decide Phileas Fogg is a gentleman, he's going to help her out. And she says she has relatives in Hong Kong. So he decides, okay, we're going to take you with us during the trip, and we're going to leave you in Hong Kong with your relatives, so to make sure that you're going to be okay. So at this point, they arrive in Calcutta, in India, and they're stopped by the police and they're taken to jail. And they're like, oh my God, these priests, they found us and they're going to put us in jail because we saved this woman from being burned alive. No, they're actually in jail because Passepartout went into a temple with shoes. So it's a whole miscommunication, but they figure it out. So Phileas Fogg, the whole time, he's just spending money, right? Which he planned for, but he's just spending shitloads of, but he's just spending a lot of money. So he pays the fine, he pays the bail, they take him out. At this point, Passepartout is feeling so bad because he's making his boss spend all this money for him, right? And Detective Fix, the whole time, is still chasing around, right? And he doesn't say that he's a detective, he's just following them around. Passepartout finds Fix again. He's like, so weird, this guy keeps following us around. And he actually thinks that he's a spy for the gentleman from the gentleman's club. And he thinks that he's a spy trying to make sure that Phileas Fogg is actually doing the trip. So he's like, I'm not going to tell him anything. And Detective Fix is like, oh no, I've been caught, I've been made. I should just come clean. They get to Singapore. They're trying to get to Hong Kong. There's some delays with the weather. This whole time, it's like they gain 2 days, they lose a day, they gain a day, they lose some time because they saved the Mrs. Aouda. So there's a lot of back and forth on the timing. But when they get to Hong Kong, finally, they're still okay with time. And they find out that the relatives, the uncle or something of Mrs. Aouda has left and is probably in the Netherlands. So nothing to do. We're just going to take you with us again. So they get to Hong Kong. The steamer is delayed. So they decide to go to a hotel. They do some touristing. Phileas Fogg could not care less. And Passepartout has a drink with Fix. And Fix finally tells him, I'm a detective. I'm here to capture your boss because he's the thief. And Passepartout doesn't believe it. And Fix decides, okay, I can't have this guy go and tell his boss what I just told him. So he actually drugs him. So he gives him some opium, which is crazy. But he drugs the guy. And then Passepartout falls asleep. And Fix leaves. And this is important because the steamer was leaving at 9 in the morning. But there were, like, because something was had to be fixed. But when Passepartout went to buy the tickets for the cabin, they told him, oh, it's actually, we're going to leave early and we're going to leave tonight instead of tomorrow morning. And he knows that he has to go and tell Phileas Fogg and Mrs. Aouda, who are traveling and doing some touristing with the carriage. But because he's drugged by Fix, he can't tell him. So then the next morning, Phileas Fogg and Mrs. Aouda arrive at the dock. So the next morning, Phileas Fogg and Mrs. Aouda arrive at the dock to get on the steamer at 9 a.m. And there's no steamer. And they find out that it left the day before. So now they need to find another way to get to Japan, which is where the steamer is leaving for San Francisco. So now Phileas Fogg has another problem, which is he needs to get to Japan within like 2 days, which is absolutely crazy. But he always finds a way. So he goes and he finds another boat. He hires a small boat. He convinces the guy to go to Japan. He's like, well, actually, you don't have to go to Japan. I can go to Shanghai because that's where the steamer leaves from. That's the home base. So they're like, let's get it to Shanghai. I'm going to give you extra money if you get me there before time. They get on the boat. They have delays. They have a storm. It's horrible. This whole time, it's him and Mrs. Aouda and Fix who he meets. And he's like, oh, you're also going to England? I will bring you with me. And Phileas Fogg is actually paying for Fix. And Fix is pretending to be his friend this whole time. They make it to Shanghai just to see the boat leaving. And they're like, no, we missed it. We're too late. So they fire the cannons or something to make a signal, like a distress signal. And that's where the chapter ends. And you're like, oh my God, like what's happening? Everything is falling apart. There's no way they're going to make it in time. We jump to Passepartout, who turns out he had woken up, half drugged, in Hong Kong. And he knew that he had to get on the boat. And he was hoping that somehow Phileas Fogg had found out about the changing time. So he wakes up, barely makes it on the ship, and he makes it on the ship. And he goes all the way to Japan, to Yokohama. He gets there and he's like, oh my God, my boss is not here. He's still in Hong Kong. What am I going to do? I have no money. I have nothing to do. So he actually goes to the streets. He's starving. He needs to find a way to survive. So he ends up joining a circus, a troupe that is there called the Long Noses. And they have to do this whole thing. And then he's part of a human pyramid and he's at the bottom. And this is like a full day that passes. And then he looks up and sees, and this is in Japan, right? Like days later. He looks up and he sees Phileas Fogg and Mrs. Oda in the audience. And he's like, oh my God. So he stands up and of course the whole human pyramid falls apart. And they're super angry at them. And then they rush and they make it on the boat. And then we go back and turns out what happened is when they fired the signal, the big boat in Shanghai saw them and went to the small boat and brought them up on board. So they actually did make it to Yokohama in time and they were in the right boat. And then they all make it back into the boat and they go to San Francisco. At this point, I don't even know what day it is, but he's calculating everything. He takes note of all the days on his little notebook. They make it to San Francisco. There's a political rally or election rally. There's a fight. They're in the middle of the fight. There's this American guy that tries to punch Phileas Fogg and ends up punching Fix instead. And Phileas Fogg is like, I'm a gentleman with honor. Like, I will come back to America and I'll kick your ass. Like, I will duel you because this is a matter of honor. And the American guy's like, yes, you do that. And it's like super silly, but man, duels. The honor is at stake. And this guy's like Colonel Proctor. So at this point, they're almost there. They just have to go they have to cross by train all of the United States and then get on a steamer that will take them straight to Liverpool. That's the last part of the trip. They're in the train, they're playing whist, they're having a nice time. They pass by a bridge that is almost falling down. They have to stop the train and then someone's like, we're gonna go full ahead. If we go really, really fast, the bridge is not gonna fall apart and we're gonna survive. Crazy idea, but it works. They go really, really fast. As they pass the bridge collapses and then, of course, all other trains are screwed, but doesn't matter. They continue, everything's fine. They pass by the Mormon land, which is a fun little tidbit about them having a lot of wives. And then they get attacked by Sioux warriors. I don't know, I'm guessing it's a tribe or something. They get attacked. They have to stop the train. Passepartout and two other people sacrifice themselves to save everybody on the train. It's a very chaotic, like action movie kind of thing. And they actually get taken. They get captured. So Phileas Fogg here has to decide, do I continue and go all the way to Omaha so that I can take the steamer, or do I go and save Passepartout? And this is a very important moment because he decides to sacrifice his whole trip. Because he knows that if he goes after Passepartout, he's probably not going to make it. And he's still a man of honor, a gentleman, decides to do it. They go with a bunch of like military men that were also on the train. They go and they do make it back. They do save them. It's a rescue mission and they are successful and they come back just to find out that the train that was fixed and had to pick them up left like 3 hours ago. So all hope is lost. And then Fix, who is still with them at this point, is like full on, says, I found a way. We can take a sledge with sails all the way to Omaha or something. So it's super cold. Mrs. Aouda wants to keep going with them. She's super cold. They're all super cold, but they make it. Super, super exciting stuff. And they make it to Omaha 45 minutes late. They literally travel with a sledge with sails for like 6 or 7 hours to make it to the city on the coast. And they're 45 minutes late. They missed the boat that goes to, that crosses the Atlantic. And there's only one boat crossing the Atlantic at this point. Phileas Fogg says, I will not give up. He finds a guy with a boat. That's always his thing. And he says, I will buy your boat. No, you won't. I will hire your boat. No, you won't. I want to go to Liverpool. No, I'm going to Bordeaux. Okay, fine. Take us all to Bordeaux. Fix, I'm going to pay for your ticket. Let's go. All 4 of them. They get on the boat. They're going to Bordeaux. A few hours after, the guy who owns the boat is stuck in the cabin, gagged and captured because Phileas Fogg got on the boat and he went around and talked to the entire crew and bribed them to take them to Liverpool instead. So there was a coup. So they decided, yeah, screw it. Phileas Fogg is our captain now. They stuck the other guy in the cabin and they decided to go to Liverpool instead. Awesome. This is the part where Phileas Fogg is like the most energetic and happy ever. And then they're like very close to making it to the other side of the Atlantic, and they realize they're out of gas. They don't have enough fuel, and they won't make it. So Phileas Fogg's like, we're gonna tear down the boat. We're gonna tear down the boat. We're gonna burn the wood, and we're gonna use that as fuel. So they literally tear apart everything except the hull, the vessel that they need to keep going. It's like you're eating the boat to keep going. It's really fun. And they make it to Queenstown in Ireland. They take a train to Dublin. They make it to Dublin. They make the train to Liverpool. It's like the whole thing is unbelievable. They make it to Liverpool. They're finally in British territory. And Fix goes like, Phileas Fogg, by the name of the Queen, you are under arrest. And you're like, are you serious? They arrived on the 21st of December in Liverpool. They had 6 hours to get back to London. And the train was going to take them like 4 or 5 hours. You know, they could have made it in time. But Fix decides, no, he's a gentleman. He's helped me. He's paid for my whole trip. But I still believe he's guilty. So he puts him in jail. And then you're like, okay, everything is lost. This is it. No hope. He's in jail. Everything is crazy. He's counting the minutes. It's like the train is leaving now. The train is leaving now. The train is leaving now. The train leaves, and then Fix shows up and says, I'm so sorry. Turns out they captured the robber 3 days ago, but I didn't know because we were on the boat. So sorry. So of course, Phileas Fogg was not the robber after all. And this is the one time he gets like emotional and he punches Fix in the face. They get in the cab, they go to the train. The whole time Mrs. Wood is stuck with them. She's like, no, I want to stay with you. You're my savior. I appreciate you. I'm going to stick with you the whole time. They get on the train. They make it to London at 8:50. And the whole bet, he had to be at the Gentleman's Club at 8:45. And they arrive at the station, at King's Cross Station in London at 8:50. And he's like, this is it. 80 days. We lost. They go home like nothing changed. Like he didn't just lose all his fortune. Passepartout and Mrs. Oda are kind of scared that he's a bit depressed and he might do something crazy. So they're trying to keep an eye on him. Mrs. Oda has a conversation with him. And he's like, I'm so sorry. Like I wanted to provide for you and care for you. But now I'm a destitute man and I'm a poor man. And she's like, no, but I still appreciate you and I admire you. I want to be your friend. I want to be your relative. Would you take me as your wife? And he's like, yes, I love you. And this is all I want. So it's actually very romantic and they're very cute. And he finally shows his emotions and he finally understands that this whole time he actually did care a lot for her and he does love her. So they decide to get married. They call Passepartout. They're like, okay, it's Sunday, but we can get married tomorrow. Passepartout go to the church and say that we need to get married tomorrow. Amazing. And then we also see that at the Gentleman's Club, they're all waiting. Everybody's waiting outside because they all have been following this whole trip and this whole craziness. They're all waiting. And the four gentlemen, they're looking at the clock and they're like, it's 8:42. It's 8:43. If he's not here by now, then he's not going to make it. It's 8:44. It's 8:45. And then they hear people screaming outside because Phileas Fogg is outside and he won the bet. And then you're like, how did this happen? How is this possible? Turns out, when Passepartout went to the church to see if they could get married, the priest is like, well, what do you mean? Today is Saturday. He's like, no, today's Sunday. No, today is Saturday. So it turns out, and this is something they did, like, gives little clues throughout the book. Every time they were going east, they were going faster, right? So they were gaining like 4 minutes every time they passed the meridian. So inadvertently, as they went around the world, they actually gained a full day. So thinking that they had arrived on the 21st of December, they had actually arrived on the 20th of December. And they arrived a full day early. But because he'd been at home, depressed, waiting to see what happened, they almost missed it. He spent a whole day in London just wasting time. But Passepartout got home in time. He's like, quick, it's still Sunday. We're still in time. We have 10 minutes to make it to the Gentleman's Club. And that's how they made it in time. The whole time they had just been a day in advance without knowing. So he makes it in time at 8:45 p.m. He wins the bet, and then it ends in a really cute way. So Passepartout figures out that they could have done it at 79 days instead of 80. And then it finishes with, and so Phileas Fogg had won his bet. He had completed this journey around the world in 80 days. To do so, he had used all possible means of transport: steamships, railways, carriages, yachts, commercial vessels, a sledge, and an elephant. The eccentric gentleman had displayed throughout his outstanding qualities of composure and precision. But apart from this, what had he gained from all his travel? What had the journey brought him? Nothing, it could be said. Nothing, that is, except for a charming wife who, however unlikely it may seem, made him the happiest of men. In all truth, isn't this more than enough reward for going around the world? And that is a beautiful story about how planning everything will get you far, and how it was all worth it because he found love in the end. And that's it for today. Join me next time.